Thank you guys all for coming today to the Working with Investors Playbook. I had the distinct privileges to do some three of my friends today. I always want to take an opportunity to say at the beginning of any training or any sales meeting or anything that we do, we know how crazy your lives get. And for you to take time out of your day because you see value in something, that does not get lost on me, the leadership team, Kate. We're very grateful for your attendance at anything that we do because we know how insane life can get. So from my heart to yours, thank you just for taking time out of your day and being here. I would like to introduce our amazing panel today. Jermaine, I can't bench as much as Christopher Brooks is here with us today. My good friend Alex Spino and Alexys, as you guys all know. So let's give it up for our panel today. I hate to be the MC of these things, but if it's also something I'm interested in, like investing, I'm also excited to be here to hear from you today. So I'm gonna hand it over to you. You guys have a great class.
All right, so let's start with introduction. Jermaine, who are you?
I was born in line.
All right. Okay, so I am Alexys Jones. When it comes to the investment side, a lot of you know I've been investing in real estate since I was 20 years old, so a little bit coming up on 20 years. I enjoy working with investors because, in a nutshell, I didn't have that realtor that poured into me when I started buying houses. And all the houses I sold and bought for $5,000, $18,000, they're all selling for like $160,000. So that comes from my passion of helping others kind of just navigate the investment process, building wealth, investing in real estate, and kind of pouring into it. Like the reason why.
I'm Alex Spino. I invest in real estate myself. I've done house hacking. I have duplex. I've done furnished rentals. I enjoy helping investors because it's something that I personally enjoy and invest in. And it's just a good way to diversify your business. It's not all my business, but it's a good way to kind of keep your hand on the pulse as far as what's happening in the investment world. And then on the, on just the regular residential side.
And I'm Jermaine Brooks. I am the AY of the panel. I've been doing this for a long time. Every mistake you can make in investing, I've done it. I got my license to sell off the portfolio I had built. And then I just chose to work with the people I knew, which were investors. I knew the language, we spoke the same language, and I'm still investing now and doing development things now. So glad to be here.
So what investors actually care about. So we're going to dive into all of these areas separately, but for the most part, it's return on investment, the speed. Their numbers is number one, and not all of the finishes. So looking at investment properties is more so the outside of learning your investor, and we'll kind of dig into that on write some handouts in the film. We're kind of learning your investors and kind of seeing what kind of job they want to do, what their style is, what their strategy is, and overall what's important to them. If you get your piece of work, it's about your name and your section.
Okay, so the types of investors you'll encounter, here's just some of them. So if someone's gonna fix and flip something, I think that's like the most common one we'll see, or people hear of. If you don't know anything about investments, you'll probably hear that one the most common. The BRRRR method, so that's when someone buys, they refinance, they renovate, refinance, and they repeat that whole cycle again. The buy and hold, the short-term rental, and then also we didn't put on there, that's the house hacking. We'll go into all the different ones of that. The short-term rental or furnished rentals, those are like your Airbnbs, your furnished finder, things that have like they're staying there for maybe a day, or a short-term is anything under a month, a mid-term is 30 days, and then a long-term is when they're in a year lease. So those are all the different types. So when you're working with the investor, that's like part of the first thing is understanding what avenue or method they're looking to invest in and what their end game is, because that's gonna, or even if they're not sure what they want to do, these are the different avenues that you would want to be familiar with. So you can kind of give them some direction on, hey, this is like based on what you're describing, what type of cash flow you're looking for, what type of cash you have on hand that would best fit one of these methods. And I think all three of us like represent and done array of different ones of these at some point.
All right, now, how, by show of hands, how many agents are working with investors right now? All right. So that's a popular. I feel working with investors is a lot different than working with your traditional home buyer. I love it because a traditional home buyer is going to buy a house once every 7 years, but your investor is going to buy maybe 2 to 5 in a month. So you get the repeat business. I always tell everybody, why not work with somebody who's buying multiple houses in a month, and you can sell that same house multiple times. If you meet a person, you can buy. I always enter my investors in on the REO side, so they're buying it, they're going to renovate it, then they're going to rent it, then they'll rent it out for about 2 years, and then they'll call you back to sell it. That's 3 deals right there, and if you get both sides, then that's 6. So that's the math that I do in my head. Also, working with investors, most of the deals are cash deals or hard money deals. So now you got 14-day, 20-day closes compared to your traditional 30 to 45 with an extension taking you to 60, with an appraisal issue taking you to 90, and those type things. So as far as I know, in my world, I play like a lot of cap management. When it's time for me to cap, that's when I really start working. So I'll front load all of my deals and everything like that, because you know, if you got 5 or 6 deals cash that's going to close within a 30-day period, now you know how much income you have coming in. You know that's going towards your cap and those type things like that. So those are just some of the things that I use when working with investors. But the biggest key is understanding what they want. And I can't say it enough. I don't want to skip. You talk about your intro, because one of the biggest things we're working with investors, like we just figured out, you have to figure out what their strategy is. You have to understand what they're asking for. One of the biggest things I hear all the time is from investors. They say, "How you doing? I'm looking to invest in Cleveland. I want to find properties that I can get a good cash flow monthly, a great cap rate, and ARV when I go to sell." Now let's think about it. First, I mean, if you don't understand that terminology, then that's the first place we need to start, because you have to be able to speak their language. So if you have somebody call you and say that's the pie in the sky right there. They want a property they can buy cheap. They want a property that cash flows. They want a great cap rate. And then when they go to sell it, they want high ARV. You're not going to get all of that. You're not going to get all that. And in order for you to understand that, you have to understand the numbers. So I'll just talk through that real quick. If you buy a property and you want high cash flow. So right now, if you're getting a property, Cleveland, 44128, taxes are under $3,000 for the year. You're getting about $1,500 in rent. Numbers look good. Everything's great. However, that market isn't growing on the sale side when they go to resell. It's not growing like it is in a Garfield Heights, which is growing really fast, a Maple Heights, which is growing really fast. But what's hurting in Maple Heights is the taxes. So now when you calculate your net ROI, you got to include the taxes. And for the first time, I started seeing taxes in Maple Heights, $5,000 for the year. So now your net ROI is going down. So you're not bringing that cash flow in. That cap rate is not between that 8 to 12%, but they do have the resale value for the ARV. So you have to be in control of that conversation when you're having that with an investor, or else you will be looking for the pie in the sky and it doesn't exist. And I met with an agent this weekend and he was like, "I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out. I'm running around trying to find this, trying to find that, trying to find this." And I showed 50 houses, didn't put in one offer. And when we got down to it, it was just the fact that he didn't understand what his client was asking for. And he didn't explain to his client that that's not achievable. So that's the biggest thing. But that was what's common mistakes.
Great. So common mistakes of perfection as well. You kind of touched on that. Pitching pretty kitchens instead of profitability, and then kind of just moving on to the intake process.
Yep.
So who in here, even newer agents get calls about investors wanting to buy. What do you do in that process? Do you go out and just show the house? Like, what does that look like for any of them?
What they're. My idea, I want to know exactly what you want from me, because I'm not gonna be running around. Not like you doing all kind of stuff, so what do you want? Do you want to make money? Do you want to spend less but make more? So that'd be my thing, I'll be like, okay, well, what's the goal here? Once I get clear on their goals, then I'll start sending stuff and say, hey, like which one of these properties you like, and then we can move forward.
So that's great. So I know I'm not the only one that gets phone calls as an investor, even if it's a lead from, it's a call about one of our listings or a call about another property or just saying, hey, if you have any other properties, send it to me. So I kind of cut all of that out and I start the process with, we're going to schedule a Zoom call. Because I'm not going to run out and show properties for anybody that, you know, I like my clients to be loyal to me. I don't care if you're an investor or not. I pride my business on loyalty. And I tell my investors, like, I understand if a good deal comes across the table, just use my title, you know. But the process that I go through, you have two handouts on the table. And I usually like to vet them and kind of see exactly what it is that they're looking for. So what is their investment? What are their investment goals? So sometimes you want to know if they're looking for cash flow, long-term appreciation, or a mix of both. So do I have a flipper? Or do I have someone that's looking to buy and hold? So with the BRRRR method, are they looking to purchase a property within 3 to 6 months, refinance and kind of move on to the next property? What's important to them sometimes is long-term value over time. They're looking to buy something that's a little bit ready to go and kind of just let the area continue to build and go from there. Some people like to do 50 to 60 grand on rehabs. It's not my strategy, however. There are individuals that have strategies that are that way. So why do you want to invest in real estate? So I'm digging into their why. So is it building a family legacy, diversifying your portfolio, or is it pursuing financial freedom? Like, why are they investing in real estate? You hear so many people say Cleveland is one of the number one places to invest, and I just want to do it. Well, I want to work with people that know why they want it. They're a little bit more serious. What's your primary reason for investing? So is it income, tax benefits? We have individuals that make a lot of money in California. They just want tax write-offs. So what's the reason? Do you have previous experience in investing in real estate? What type of properties are you most interested in? So single families, multi-families, commercial properties, fix and flips, and again, those buy and hold. So what is your preferred investment strategy? So are you looking for turnkey properties, value add opportunities, or distressed properties? What markets are you interested in investing in? I typically like to keep my clients in opportunity zones, so areas that are going to continue to grow. There's some zip codes that I'll suggest my clients not to buy into. I had an investor that I had suggested, like, hey, this is not the area. Rachel was kind of working with this client, bought 6 properties within 2 months. We're selling all of them now because we bought in areas that we told him not to buy in. So now he's having issues with people breaking into the properties and having issues with getting tenants in the property. So just kind of building that relationship with your clients will take you a long way, and kind of just telling them, like, hey, knowledge and experience is 2 different things. You know, you got to build your knowledge in the different areas that you're investing in. So the second sheet is just kind of another intake form that we use. So between those 2 questions, I kind of know what my client is looking to do. And what I do from there is I put them up on an auto listing. I put myself on that same auto listing. So to save time, and I'm not searching every day, what's the next property, what's the next property. We know we have a shortage of homes. All the stuff that's on the market is old. If nobody wants to buy it, my clients, you know, they don't buy it either. So I put myself on auto listings. I look every morning and I put, if I'm working with 20 investors, whatever that looks like, I put that client with that property. And I send it to 2 or 3 of them. And I touch them daily and I'm done. So when I show properties, again, I typically show them in the morning. So I show my properties in the morning, come to the office right when I put them done. So kind of just a way to make the process a little bit more seamless for you. And you're not running around.
Then I just want to jump in that sandbox. One of the biggest things that I include also in that is how are you paying for this? That is key, essential, and you gotta understand it. If it's cash, send me a proof of funds. If it's hard money, let's be real about it and say, how much money do you have towards your down deposit? Who's your hard money lender? I like to have a conversation with our hard money lender. A lot of them do things different ways. Some do a desktop appraisal, some do a quick DPO, some do a real appraisal. So you need to know all of that as well. Some ask for 25% down, some different. You want to make sure your client has that. And do they have the funds to fix up the house? That's another thing. So they'll go buy the property. So they might have the money to buy the property, but then how you go fix it up? How you go get there? So I go through that whole gambit. And I like to try, during that conversation, I like to try to have a business model that this client is going out. I will buy under 40. I only want to put 30 in. I need to be all in at 80. And this house needs to appraise for 120. That's what I try to do. I try to get that. So then it's like bing, bing, bing. This is in your buy box and go from there.
Since you touch the financials thing, how we can assist investors who is buying houses through the auctions?
Through the auctions. Yeah, that's the hard one because you have no control over the buy part. So you're pretty much inheriting what they've already purchased and letting them know. So a lot of times when I get those situations, you're fixing the problem, which in my business is now you become the fixer and now you're creating a relationship. So if you can get them over that finish line, that becomes your client forever. However, it is a tough struggle because a lot of times if you notice in the auctions used to be, you can go in there and shoot and come out of there dirt cheap. Now we got people, especially when they went online, we got people all over the world bidding on a piece of land, no house even there, and bidding the numbers up to 20 to 30,000. And a lot of people are losing on that. So I wish I had a perfect answer for you, but I don't because we don't control that purchase price.
So what is the proper way to work with this kind of investor?
You need to get them before they bid, get them set a plan. This zip code right here, and this zip code, the ARV is this. If you're looking at a property that's gonna just assume everything needs a total put. 1,500 square foot house, how much would my contractor charge for that? We're at 45, 50K. All right. So now you got your renovation cost, you got your ARV cost, and now don't bid over anything over 30K. You know what I'm saying? So you can set that parameter for them.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're already on the site shooting, and then they come to you at the end. But next time they go, have that business model and that plan already set. That's what I suggest.
Okay.
Typically with lending too, he touched on kind of the lending process and who they're working with as lenders. I typically like to move my clients over to my lender. So I have them have a conversation with them, kind of tell them my hands-on experience and kind of just go from there. So I want everything to be eventually with all of my investors, we're all going to work with the same contractors, the same lenders, the same inspectors if we're doing inspections. Like it's going to be in the same circle. So you're just building that relationship of trust. And with those auctions, like they may buy at an auction, but they might want to sell it too. So you're just keeping that relationship open because they're going to come back to you for that sale.
Oh yeah, that's the point.
And pushing them deals as well that fit those kind of areas that they're looking at. They'll buy both. They're not going to just stick with just auction.
Just be kind of like advisor about the areas and where they can get the most value.
And that's just another strategy as well. I got guys that go to the auction and then they'll buy, and what we try to do is win on the buy. So we know areas up and coming. We shooting, max is 30K. Whatever you can get for 30K, we know we can get on the market right now for 50. That's still good money. So I got guys like that go to the auction, buy. It'll take forever for the deed to record. But once the deed records, then we sign a listing agreement and we put it on the market as is. And they still make their yield. That's still a good deal. So it really depends on that business structure and that model. And that's why I say it's really important to get that information from the beginning. So they don't go to the auction and overbid on the house and now they stuck.
Okay.
And that's also like Rachel, your client bought like 5 houses from us, but he comes back to her to resell them. He may try to rent them out if the renting doesn't work for him. You know, he's always trying to change his strategy, but he'll go and sell them. So he's coming back to her to sell all those properties. But she's not stressing him about buying a property with her because she already knows that's his method. But he'll be back to her to sell.
And that's working smarter too. If you had that conversation and they say, I'm gonna go to the auction and bid, less paperwork for you.
Yeah,
Less headache. You don't have to go look, let them just go shoot. And then when they come back with the product, then that's when you start.
Yeah. Another part that we do in the intake process is kind of go over creating like our boundaries, like our work schedule. So I typically don't work on Sundays, Mondays, I work from home. So everybody that I work with, all of my investors know that. Also, the buyer agreements we sign at that time, and our minimums are $3,500 per deal. So it doesn't matter if you buy a property for $10, it's $3,500. We try our best, and we tell them like we try our best to get a portion of that commission from the seller, but we know that we're kind of going in on lower deals, and the most that we typically see is $1,500. But just setting those boundaries as well.
Yeah, because it's important to get that agreement signed before you start running around these investors and you're looking at properties. And like back to the intake form, how important it is when investors don't have a lot of answers to these, like their buybacks, if they can't even define their buybacks, like they don't know their budget, they don't know a lot of the questions these answer. That's already a red flag, and to know like how serious of an investor are they and how much work do they expect? You can only do so much. You can't create their buybacks. Like they're going to have to give you something to work with. And if they don't know what their budget is, or they don't know what method they're trying to go in, that kind of like sets the tone of that relationship.
And they always
Yeah.
come back. They might
Yeah.
sit to the side for a little while. They might even do a deal with someone an agent that's not knowledgeable, and just throw them in the house, and they're gonna come back. But they always come back.
I want to say this, especially for newer agents. It is okay to tell someone that that strategy is not something you're willing to do. I have a newer agent on the team, and some investor called him and said, I just need you to send me y'all's contract, and I'm gonna put it through AI, and I'm gonna shoot it to a whole bunch of people, and everything is gonna be 30% off list price. But when somebody jumps on it, then I'll let you negotiate. And he was really considering this, like, well, he's gonna put in like 40-something offers. He might get 2, then I can just work the deal. And I was like, hell no. Like, that's just insane. And some of the stuff investors ask you to do is just erratic. And it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
A lot of us need to start saying more often, because then they don't have those expectations. So like Alexis and Alex was saying, set those expectations, those boundaries and things like that from the beginning. I had a person say, I need you to go off 116th and do a video of the 4 blocks. I said, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then one guy said, I need you to find me properties a quarter mile away from all Walmarts. That's something you can do.
I call them new kid in the sandbox.
Yeah. So it is okay. And as a licensed agent and understanding our city, when investors are coming into this town, we are the masters. It is okay for us to say no.
And they respect boundaries, like all that running around and just kind of running out the house when you see a property, like they're going to run you, but they're going to take that deal to that other agent and work and have them write it up. Like they're going to run you. So you have to set expectations, boundaries. They have to do their homework. So generally we'll get into numbers, but my clients run their numbers and everything. They present those numbers, kind of know where they're at. I ask them what their strategy is for the property before I even go outside.
Yeah, you want to set those expectations, because like Jermaine said, if they have like a pie in the sky type idea on something, you have to shut it down. Say like what you're looking for, that with the area that you're looking at or the budget you have, that's just really not feasible. And the budget's going to dictate everything, like what market you can buy into, what type of deal you're going to get, and just set those expectations, because they may think that what they're trying for is possible, and then you both could be on a hamster wheel.
Yep.
And then they're going to get frustrated and they're going to move on. So it's like, yeah, setting expectations, saying sometimes like, hey, that's not possible what you're looking for, but I can direct you here, and this is going to be more of a better option for what you have, what kind of budget you have.
So just kind of,
You mentioned a couple times about for investors being in a situation where they have to sell like their portfolio. Can you speak a little bit to how, what's the strategy you're running at?
Where they,
Are there realtors who have like a group of investors that you would approach, or how do you?
how do you get that investor?
Well, so
How do you
if you're
sell them?
talking, if you're talking to an investor who has a book that's currently being managed by a manager. So they're exhausted in that process. And what is your strategy to help them get that portfolio sold?
Yeah, so you wanna place it on the market. You can go ahead.
Yes. So what mine is, that's the coming to Jesus meeting. 50% of the deals I'm doing now are those situations. They came in, they thought it was sweet. Excuse my language. They thought it was sweet. They thought they was gonna come in here and yeah. They ran into the wrong property manager. They're gonna change the toilet out 10 times and they still getting charged for it. They done. Sell this and I want my money back. That's the real conversation you have to have, and you really have to understand your number. You bought at 75K. That's the top of the market. You lost on your buy. Right now, this house is worth 69K because it's been killed by the tenant that you had in here. This is the realization of it. There's only two things you can do. Cash out now. Let's just put it on the market, sell it. Let's fire sell it, get it going, get some cash back into your pocket. From there, get some cash back. Then let's try to see if it's worth fixing up some more. And what I do is I prioritize the property. This is the best piece of crap you got. You know, this is your best piece of crap. So we're gonna save him for last. Let's get rid of this one, and then let's go back to see if we can put money in to bring the whole package together.
So it
But-
sounds like you list them individually as well as,
Yeah, I do both. List them individually because you'll get more. All right. If you're selling to an investor and you're selling a package to another investor, it's sharp versus sharp. You know, and I tell a lot of my clients that like, he was like, I'll just package it together and find me another investor. All right, well, they're gonna give you the same price you don't want to hear. But if you put it on the open market, what I call it is fresh blood. You put it on the open market, got new investors coming in here all day, and somebody might be the same person you was when you bought it at a high price. And that's the reality of the situation. But you have to understand the market, understand the numbers, and then look at each property different. And that's the coming to Jesus meeting you have to have with, because their expectations were shot. The first agent that sold them the property, they got over it. And they didn't really set those expectations and understand it. So now you got to clean up the mess. So that's why they'll start trusting you, because you're telling them, look, you bought this house for 75K. They got it for 30. They didn't even do nothing to it. And now you stuck with the mess. You're not making any money. Let's dump it, get out of here, and let's try to work on these other problems.
That's the exact situation I'm dealing with my client. We sold 2, he refied 3 yesterday. And now he wants to sell. So now he wants to question, how much can I get for him? Well, how much did you get on the refi? He did in the paper. You're kind of stuck. You're going to be bringing money to the table, not even better to you. So I say that to say, like in the beginning, it's kind of like when they're shooting wrong, when they're doing things, buying things that you typically wouldn't buy, or just the strategy and the method and everything is just off, and you're telling them like, hey, this areas are really bad. It's going to be hard to get tenants in it. The tenant type is going to be your DNF tenant. And you're going to have to work through that process if you can even get them in there, and they're going to stop paying rent. That's exactly what's going on right now. So we've set the tone for that client. So now he knows when he's going through his barrier and he's bringing money to the table, we had the conversation. We didn't throw you in there. And when we went back, I said, where are you at with it, Rachel? My buy box is 50 to 60,000. So he got 50 to 60,000. And next to the 50 and 60,000, somebody passed away. There's 100 bottles sitting there. Who's going to remove the bottles? Let's take it to. Why did you buy it? So it's kind of redirecting your clients. It does in the beginning take a little bit of work, but they'll eventually all get there, and they'll kind of know their areas where they're going to buy it.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of situations when they think that they are smarter than you are.
And that's okay.
And they like, no, I want more. And they walk out and then come back to, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so two things on that. The market is always gonna teach an investor a lesson.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time. The market will show you. I'll take the ride with you just for the fun. I'm in the passenger seat with the seatbelt on because I already know what's gonna happen. But they'll take the ride with you. And then another thing, as agents, we say this much. We have to be the agent who can solve the problem is the agent that they'll have faith. A lot of times they have bought in the wrong situation, and you have to be the problem solver to let them understand where they can go from here.
Yeah, you want to
Yeah.
be like led with fiduciary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, like you want to act
Yeah.
in very good faith and
right.
not just like chasing a check or a commission.
Yep.
Because we're here, we're the boots on the ground, and most likely these are out of state investors, maybe out of the country investors. So they're going by what you say, and you could be pushing properties, and that's why a lot of these investors get in the situation they're in, because they were pushing the properties and neighborhoods and situations that they should have never to begin with. But if you're acting in good faith and you're not chasing a commission and you're chasing that relationship, that's when they'll buy in on that, the trust and the allegiance towards them, and they'll like, okay, I'm guiding you in the right direction. But they have a lot of them been burned before by bad agents. A lot of them have been pulled out of the market completely because they're like, I can't invest in Cleveland anymore because I don't have the right team.
Right.
You know, team. Yeah, all that. So that's definitely a thing. I think like acting in fiduciary, it's very easy in the beginning, especially if you're new, to be like, oh, I need this paycheck. Or especially if they're saying, I want this house, and you know this isn't really the best house or best situation, but they want it, but it is. I think just acting in good faith and being honest with them is gonna like really get you that buy-in with that client for life.
Yep. Yep.
How you analyze a good deal?
Well, first, I got a couple of tools that I use. I have a cap rate calculator on my phone, so I can run the numbers extremely quick. I have an ROI calculator as well. I talk lender, like what the lenders love when you talk their language. And then it's also a lot of investors that come don't understand what the actual ROI is. The ROI is how much money did it cost you to get into this deal and what that money is going to make you. A lot of them look at it totally different, and they look at the property and the property value. If you got a $80,000 property and you got in it for $4,000, $5,000, that's the only money you have at risk right now. So your return on $5K is going to be a lot more prevalent than you go spend $80K on a house. So that's when you have to have those conversations as far as understanding your numbers. What's the best way to get into the game? And that's why I had that conversation. You got 100K liquid and you want to go buy a property, talking about find me something I can pay 50K cash for that needs renovation. You don't burn through your cash. That's one deal. Now we stuck. Right. But if you can leverage that 100K with hard money, with different loans, different products, things like that, now you're putting less money at risk, and those numbers are looking a lot better. So I have, like I said, I got an ROI calculator. You can just Google the ROI calculator. This one, you can just put it in Safari or whatever and have that. And what that does is, real quick, it just how much money did you put into the deal? How much are you getting monthly? And then your returns, your vacancy rate, it calculates all of that for you. And then it shows you your return on investment.
What's the name of that calculator?
It's called an ROI calculator.
Oh, like orange?
R like Robert,
Oh, yeah, it's on the.
O for orange, and I for influence.
Return on investment. No, I'm sorry. Could you give a scenario? Somebody has $100,000. What's the best investment? Which you would recommend a person?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Really got a question. Every
Yeah.
agent, client,
For an example of somebody that was successful with $100,000.
There is
What they
to
did.
$100,000, because you gotta get to the refinance. But I have a client that may have a HELOC that's 500,000 or whatever that, they may have a little bit of cash, and then you have this person that has 100,000, but that person that has 100,000 wants to go in there and they're okay with, they're looking at, I'm dealing with this now, they're looking at properties 40 to 50,000 on a rehab. So you're kind of blowing, your money's gonna be sitting, you're gonna start getting nervous because you have all this money in in the property. And you may have not got all of that money back to do the construction part on the loan. So 100,000 can blow through really fast. My strategy is a little bit different. I like to buy in properties that don't need big rehabs. So I'm only going in with my holding costs and maybe 10 to 15,000 on the rehab. But that strategy doesn't work for everyone. But if you have 100K, you might want to do that strategy. And that may be your goal needs to be long-term holds, because with that, that you're going to refinance typically, basically try to get your money back. I never tell anybody you're going to get 100% of their money back. The ARV changes every day.
And I'm a tad bit different. If you told me, you gave me 100,000 right now and told me what would I do with it, I'm gonna win off my buy. I'm going to find it. I'm gonna win off the buy. I'm going to the hottest area that's up and coming. I'm gonna have me a wholesaler out finding all the deals, and then I'm buying at 20 to 30K cash, and I put it right on the market for 50. I'm making 20K within 14 to 21 days, and I'm rent and repeat. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I got a lot of my investors doing right now. Even if you find houses for 45, 50 in up and coming neighborhoods, it's like I seen a 175 off 124th in Kinsville. 175K. Come on, numbers out there. Right. but the numbers are going up. So now those properties are worth a lot more now. So I'm gonna win off the buy. So therefore I don't have to worry about no lender. I ain't gotta worry about nothing like that. I'm going in, I know my market, I know the ARV, I know what homes are selling for right now, and I'm gonna win on the buy. But buy it for 20, put it on, we might clean it out, we might not, and put it right back on the market for 45, 50, and have the other agents sell it for it.
I think it goes back to like knowing what that person wants to do, because if you ask all of us if they had
It'd be different.
what we would do.
That's
Yeah, with their money. Some people, they'll do something like a house hacking. They could buy it, live in part of it, rent out the other side, do a little renovation, sell it, and they could be buying in some of the hottest areas and selling that multifamily for $300,000, $400,000. You know, so I think it it really depends on what's that person's like end game is. Are they looking for quick cash? Are they looking to hold it? Are they looking for a consistent monthly? Are they looking to refi it after? So I think it goes back to like what, and it's kind of like what that next move is. The first move kind of sets the tone for the second move. But if someone's like, hey, I just want to get something good right now and then kind of chill, or if they're like, hey, this is like the groundwork for my next move because I want to take X amount of dollars into the next deal. So I think like kind of understanding what that long-term play is. But yeah, one of us, all of us would have a different play. We all could be successful with it. But it's just like he said, I don't want to mess with lenders. I don't want to do all that. It just depends on what you're looking to do and like what, how quickly you need that money, how much you need right now.
And that's why the intake process is extremely important.
Yeah.
So you can understand what your client's needs are. And I always try to give my client, especially investors, a quick win.
And so some of them they're going to want to buy in different areas. Like some of them may say, I'm buying 44105. Well, we know because we're always researching areas. They took rent money away from 44105 and moved it to other areas. So that's not my buy box area for my client. So everything just looks completely different. And all the numbers, this class was basically just to give kind of like an intro on working with investors. And then the next class will kind of dive more into the numbers and different investment strategies and buy box types.
Because you really need your own performer or own thing that you understand. Like I got a thing called Easy Cap Rate Calculator. All right. You put in the total value of the house, the expected rent for a year. The vacancy is usually I always use 7% to 10%. And then as far as operation expenses, I use about 40% for operation. You plug those numbers in and it gives you the ROI, the cap rate, and things like that. It gives you enough information so you can have that conversation with your investor. Like you're only putting up $10,000 per se. And that $10,000 is going to get you a 14% return in this amount of time. If that's good, that's great. If not, then let's try to find something different. But it gives you that information and shoots it out to you real quick. And then, like I said, I have a performer that I use for bigger deals. So, and it calculates out to 10 years. So to calculate all the way out to 10 years, your return on your initial investment, even your debt service coverage if you got a loan, and everything like that. So it's different tools that as you get more in depth, then you can really start having those conversations. But initially, your biggest thing is just understanding the language of an investor and talking their language. And I like to control the conversation and direct them. They appreciate it. I think they appreciate it a little bit more because, like they both said, people call and they have this, what they want. And you have to be the direction to show them how to get it here quick.
I think a big part of the deal analysis is knowing the market and knowing the different areas, because they're going to call and they found a property and they think this is the golden ticket. And then you're like, yeah, this may not be, the greatest area for like what you're trying to do, but it's like you have to really know the areas and the markets and the little pockets and what's coming up and what's going down and where the developers are moving in or where the city's doing some development in. So it's like knowing all that, because that's where you can make the numbers make sense, because they vary.
Yeah.
Depending on zip code, neighborhood, street by street, they start changing dramatically. So I think that's the starting point right there.
You got to do your homework.
Yeah, you have to know it yourself before you can educate them.
What is the best advice will be for fresh investor, like first buyer investor, that he's just decided I will be investing.
Yeah.
What is the best advice you will give to this kind of person?
Figure out what your goal is.
Start with that intake.
Start with the intake form. Because that's such a huge question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they want to flip a property? How much cash do they have?
They doesn't know. They
They don't?
just like, I want to be investor. I want to
Maybe
buy a
go-
property.
Yeah.
Investigate a little bit. Then
That's like
Yeah.
it becomes a red flag.
There's a lot of people like that. Like, I will be an investor. I want to buy properties, but they come to you, and what is the best will be, I guess, advice.
I would just typically put them on an auto listing, and then I would kind of look and see what's out there, and then I would send them deals and tell them what the strategy can be for this, the outcome, how much the potential buy-in would be. So I would try to get them something, like Jermaine said, that's kind of already put together and ready to go, so that you get a win on that. Another thing that's important that adds value to you as a realtor working with investors is you want to kind of walk properties with someone that generally knows their way around the house. That's one of the number one value adds that client CMB is kind of allow how to look at structural issues. I know it would be the hot water tank, only $600, but knowing the dollar amount of all of those big ticket items, estimating what the possible rehab cost is. So kind of structural issues. I'm looking at the hot water tanks, the furnaces, newer windows, kind of knowing about the lead stuff that we can dive into at the next class. But what is it going to take for them to get this property up and get approved with that, just to be able to get their rental registration? So kind of knowing all of those things. Newer windows may be needed. I'm also looking at roof. So I may even have my roofer go drone the roof before we even place an offer if I know it's potential that we can get the property.
And that's something we talked around it, but we haven't said it. You got to build your team. Each one of us, we got to have our team. We got to have that contractor who can go and give an estimate real quick. You got to have lenders on standby, contractors on standby. You got to understand all the ins and outs with rental registrations and all the little soft cost stuff that nobody pays attention to that goes against your, operational costs. Property management referrals. You got to understand all of that, because all of that encompasses how much money they bring back.
And also know not every investor is going to buy. The pool of people that want to buy versus actually will, becomes a lot smaller. So that's why it's like when people say I want to invest, it's like they like the idea of it or the thought of it, but the reality of it is like completely different. So that's where that intake comes in, knowing your stuff, and kind of sometimes you have to call people out on their bluff, and set the expectation. Because once again, if they're saying I want to invest and have no buy. They have no direct thinking. They don't know what their budget is. It's like, yeah, we're gonna end up maybe asking some of those hardcore questions to drill down, but that sets the tone of like how serious they are and if they are gonna be able to buy even. Because sometimes like when they hear that, the real expectations, maybe the numbers don't make as much sense as they thought they were. They heard Cleveland was this great investing market.
Right.
And then when they hear it, they're kind of like, okay, maybe I'm not as prepared for this as I thought I would. Maybe I need to wait another year or so and re-strategize. So that's something too. And not everyone will buy.
We don't have it on here, but what makes your offer strong for me?
What makes my.
On an investment side, differing that from typical person.
Usually the inspection piece and the cash. So I like to do real cash, all cash, and have a contractor that already walked the property so I can remove that inspection contingency and all of that. So I'm submitting an offer that's cash with no contingencies and a quicker close.
That's typically what I do too. He's looking for all cash, but we do hard money. Our hard money guys are actually in fact, they're gonna speak a little bit to it, but I typically I walk the property to walk my due diligence. I'm calling the agent before I walk the property. I kind of know already what they're looking for, asking other offers that they have on the table. A lot of investors do lowball, so there is potential, to get those offers done, even when they say they're in multiples. When they say they're in multiples, it looks a little bit different than a traditional home buying offer. But basically, the time of the inspection, which we generally don't do inspections, I do a contractor walkthrough. But if your client does want to do inspections, we do have 5 points inspection service. They typically they're going at $250, and they do they're just looking at the mechanics. So the mechanics in their drawing room. But typically on that, if you do put a contingency, my only contingency would be a 3-day contractor walkthrough. And then I'm already reaching out to the lender and getting a proof of funds. If they're paying cash, then I'm providing their bank statement or if it's a HELOC, whatever that looks like. I typically win a lot of offers through communication with the agents, diving into their needs. A lot of them know once you work with a lot of investors, they'll kind of know who you are and know that you're going to get the deal to the closing.
And start building I'm old school. Start building your own Rolodex. All right, I got properties this is the first time I met Midge, but I know Midge has buyers that buy. So I'll shoot a deal to Midge, like this is a listing coming up. Let me know, take a peek, this, that, and other. Start building those relationships with other agents that have it. And when I first started, that was a huge part of my business. I had a lot of REO properties from the organization, and Michael Zahn, who now is big time with Remax, me and him did about 50, 60 deals because I knew he was buying, and I knew my clients wanted to sell, and it was just easy breezy. But once you start building that, now I got about 20 people that's looking for duplexes in 44105. So when your client has that, you can shoot it right there. I can get your offer in a second. It's gonna be a lowball offer because it's going to your friends and investors, but then that's how I get the listings. And then also on the investment side, when you get listings that are investment properties, use that as marketing. That's huge marketing. Every investor is gonna start calling you, and you start building those relationships. You can vet them out right then just off your listing. This one might not be right for you, but let me find you something else. Let's have this intake and go from there. And you only need 2 to 3 good investors. Everybody thinks you need 5 to 10 of them. You only need 2 to 3. If you get the right ones, they'll keep you busy.
Where do you find it?
They'll call you if you get some listings.
I remember when I started in real estate, I used to tell Kawhi, I'm not working with any investors. You can have all of these investors. And then I started kind of working with investors, kind of building the strategy, started buying myself again. And then Brooks told me, and I'm like, the market, he's like, listen, you only need a few good investors. So I was like, okay. So typically, we're going back a little bit, but like diversifying your portfolio, just think about it. If your goals are 5 deals a month and you're too short, properties are on the market, you're looking every day, I'm putting those deals with those investors to set my goals. And what's wrong with $3,500 per deal? That's $7,000 on 2 deals versus waiting around when the market shifts and buyers are a little bit undecided and, that $500,000 home, $300,000 home, there's $7,000 right there. So we have put out, I think Wendy built the terminology for investors. So something to kind of work through. We're gonna come back to the lending part, but Jermaine kind of touched on the ROI calculator and the cap rate calculator. You can scan here. I'll take a second.
Yeah, that's enough to make you dangerous too. These two items.
And I typically just throw it out there. I typically use most of the time use the MLS to run numbers. And that's worked for me, but how hard is it to run numbers when nothing is selling in the area or you're around a lot of land? So the next time that we do the next class, Jermaine's gonna break down, actually breaking down the property per square foot on what can sell in. Within 0.25 miles, 5 miles, and you have to go out one. That's kind of the way that the appraisers break it down. So just another way to just make you a little bit more knowledgeable and stronger. You need it?
I had from a phone.
Well, we gonna go because you're going.
I get it later. I get it from Jermaine.
Yes. All right, so building your team, Alex.
We touched on this a little bit of how important it is to have the right people around you because that's kind of your value add to these contractors. That's a big part of why they could choose to work with you is because you're the one that has the connections that they need, especially if these investors are not local and they do not know anyone. They're going to be leaning on you for your connections, especially your contractors. Your lenders, obviously, title companies, property management, but definitely I would say the contractors because they've been burned on so many probably previously. They've heard the story. And I would say the contractors, that's what really can make or break a deal. They could have a great deal. We could have a great find and it checks all the boxes and you have a contractor that could just destroy the whole, it could blow up. So I think and if you don't have a team yet, of these connections, ask any of us, start asking people in the office and then put them in command. So you have them logged. Put them on some sort of sheet so when that time comes, even if you don't have any investors right now or any properties that are needed for this, that you're like, okay, I got my plumber, I have an electrician, here's a general contractor, here's the lender, is that the hard money here, no speak, but so you have that so when that time comes, because you may not have somebody right now, and the last thing you want to do is kind of be behind the 8 ball when that stuff starts coming down the pipeline. And that's kind of when they're interviewing you or talking to you and you can at least feel confident, you have the right people backing you up and helping them.
And the biggest parts of the puzzle that I always continue to have barriers no matter when is contractors and property managers. We have a lot of investors that come to us after they had bad situations happen to them. The most I've seen is $50,000 in a property. And, they didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. So, and it's kind of trusting. It's still that value, but I don't refer anybody out that I haven't seen do work or that I trust because it's my name on the table. And we have to think about the investing side as a little bit different than traditional home buyers because some of these people are pulling out of their retirement to make this work. And they think it's the greatest thing, but then they turn around and they're retired. What do you do when you're retirement? And because you didn't have a good realtor that kind of lead you along the way. And just throw you into properties. All right, so
good place to find contractors, loans at Home Depot.
Yeah.
8 to 10 at the pro day.
yeah.
Stand next to the cashier.
Right.
So agent safety tips. This is very important. I typically, like I said, go out and show properties in the morning. I do carry, but I'm always looking at the area, looking at the other houses. I typically, one thing that I do is I get in the house first, do my video in the house, because a lot of these investors are out of state, so you're sending them videos of the property. And then I kind of do the exterior once I get out. My mindset is just, who's watching me from the outside for 10 minutes and then see me go in this house by myself. So just kind of protecting yourself. Sometimes I've had I've had clients that I typically let them go in, and then I let them, when they come out, they tell me they're paying at the house. And I never really let anybody walk behind me. I'm kind of letting them kind of lead the way. Another thing that's good is just to make sure you're locking the door when you go in, locking the screen door and keeping the other door open. It's just, that's what I do. But also just, I had someone call me when I was a newer agent, and he said he was going back to the military. He was going overseas, and he needed to buy this house today, and the house was $600,000 in a rural area. Some agents that are new will say, oh, I got to run out the house to show this house. I didn't get proof funds, I didn't get ID, I didn't look on 401, I didn't do anything. I just like, let me show this house. So the guy kept calling, and I'm just like, hey, send me over your proof of funds. Send me your complete information and your proof of funds. Well, he never sent it, but he just kept on saying, I gotta go overseas tomorrow. You should meet me at this property. So I just took some time to look at the property. It had been empty for a very long time, and it was in a rural area. So I never met that person, but to me, he was trying to get me. He was trying to get me. And I'm precious, card out. So there you go. But anything that you can point out, Alex, on what you do?
Yeah, I think locking the door, definitely want to lock it behind you. You don't want someone to come in, you know, after you, or yeah, if you don't feel comfortable, like going in the basement, certain space, you can let them go down. Yeah, daylight, you don't want to, I think that's just showing any property. When I tell my client, even if they're not investor or not, it's like you want to see the property during the daylight anyway. Like you want to be able to see the roof, you want to be able to see the windows, society, the yard. But there's no point in us even going to look at a property in the dark to begin with. But yeah, daylight, be aware of your surroundings. And you know, if it's something that you don't feel comfortable going to, like you don't have to go. Yeah, that's the other thing. Or bring someone with you. But it's like if it's somewhere in an area you don't feel comfortable with, and you can let the client know too, as far as like a safety thing, but that may alert them too and say, is that an area that they even want to invest in? Yeah. So
In some areas, it might be a better, it may be a sea gray area, but still you just always have to be conscious of what can happen. And a lot of us on our team share locations together, so we always know where someone's at. I may text somebody close to me or call and say, hey, can you watch my location for 5 minutes?
Another thing that I do, and my board like made it a point to tell us this, is never park in the driveway, because obviously they can park behind you and then you're stuck. But also if you're parking in the street, maybe don't parallel park between cars, just be cautious of where you put your car so you can get out if necessary.
okay, we didn't talk about forewarning. Yeah, you can easily like screen anyone with that app. So phone numbers, things you can pull up and see like, are they who they say they are, what kind of record they may have, you can see their vehicle. So that right there can tell you to like what you're kind of getting into.
Anything you do at night?
I noticed that if they're under an LLC, sometimes it didn't show up. It wouldn't even show up the LLC.
So this one is, the LLC, okay.
Oh, with their personal phone number? Usually a personal phone number should pull like their name.
Right, but if they're calling me from, like with some cell phone and there's some LLC, because I will see that it's some LLC they're calling me from.
Okay, or you can search by their name, like their individual name. So even if they're under a LLC,
And the county website.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, I was skeptical because if it came up blank based off of what they told me, and I'm looking at some other number under the LLC and I get nothing. So they made me, I was just thinking they were scams. So like Alex said, I just shuffed off anybody who said they want investor property. I didn't trust them. No, I didn't trust
Well,
them.
there are a lot of scammers for sure. Yes, you're gonna get, so you definitely want to make sure the person is who they say they are. They're not trying to have you send money. You know, like there's definitely, or they have they have budgets that are very exuberant, that you're like, is this real? Like you're cost $1 million here. You're kind of bots, like certain things like that. But yeah, I would, and clearly if they're sending a proof of funds over or pre-approval, that's gonna have their name or their email, you know, we don't have LLCs too, but there's obviously a person that's there, you know,
And
there has to be a body.
It always also goes back to the intake process. So I'm doing Zoom calls with everybody.
Mhm.
So we've already kind of built that relationship, and I kind of know who's in front of me. Jermaine, you want to end with anything that you do to prevent yourself from getting kidnapped?
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm scared too. When I go in, I always knock. I always yell. hey, I'm in here. I do that every house I go. So I done got ran up on a couple times. So hey. And I kick the door open. I let people know I'm there. I come in, I stomp. And then hey, come on, let's go. Like, cause I've been in houses before when people was in there stealing stuff. And I ran up out of there.
Remember what he said, $20,000 to $30,000, he fails and then goes from there. So
Yeah.
you know what that looks like.
That's why you go, hey.
I just watched an accident when I was showing the property and there was a man hiding in a closet and potential tenants, they opened the closet and I was right behind them. So I didn't see that. They just jump out of the house. Every time I open the door, I say, the police.
Yeah, so you gotta make yourself known.
Yeah. So
We're going to introduce Jeremy and Jeremiah. They are lenders that we personally use for our investment properties. Right now, we're buying 4 or 5 properties with Jeremy and Jeremiah right now. So they work with a lot of our investors. Kind of speak to what they are.
Have your names and ready for them?
Yeah, I can take the slide too.
on the paper.
We have the slide with our contact and, yeah.
It's on the paper.
Oh, it's on the paper, I think that.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeremiah. This is Jeremy. We are a company called Oak Tree with 2 co-founding partners of our brokerage, and we do all things real estate and all things healthcare. So we've got 2 sides of our house. We handle residential side, and we have 2 partners that handle all of our commercial stuff, including commercial loans. And the reason we're here today is Alexys asked us to come, and we want to help you guys make more money. That's our end all goal, is for you and your investors to make as much money as you possibly can. So, people a awkward background. This line of work, Jeremy can speak to his past experiences with how we got here. But for me, I'm coming from the financial world. I'm a retiree of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, 25 years, and was overseeing the Southeast as an executive for all the lines of business. So I come at this when I'm speaking with your investors from the perspective of what does your entire financial picture look like? The question that was raised over here, what do I do with $100,000? My first thought was, is $100,000 cash? Is it a 401k? Is it an IRA? Is it a HELOC? It depends on where that money is coming from, and that will kind of dictate where that conversation goes. So asking the right questions, being curious, trying to find out as much around the client as we possibly can. I think that the overarching message that you guys got today with all the things that were said were find out as much as you can about your client, back into what they want to do, start with the end in mind, and then back into how you're going to get there from the beginning. And that's exactly how we operate. We work with hard money lenders, private money lenders, DSCR lenders, you name it, we can get it done for your clients, and we can do it fast. I think Jeremy had somebody email them over waiting that we just met with yesterday, and they said, can we close Friday? And that's a real possibility. So we can go quick. But at the end of the day, we want to protect your clients as well. We are both investors. Jeremy's a couple hundred doors, long-term rentals. My wife and I, we have all short-term vacation rentals in the Southeast. So we're coming at it from investor eyes when we're looking at a deal. And if the deal doesn't make sense on paper, we're not going to lend the money. We separate ourselves from other lenders as we're not a bag of money. Everybody presents themselves as a bag of money. Come get a bag of money from us, we'll help you buy your home. We're coming at it from the perspective of, is this a good opportunity? We want to be a client. We want you to be a client of ours for life. And if you strike out the first time you work with us, you're never going to come back to us again. So we want to make sure that they're protected with everything that they're doing as well. So that's who we are. That's who I am. Jeremy can tell you about it.
So my background, I've been buying real estate since 2004 in Cleveland, Ohio. I got 183 rental units, all on the Burr method. Unfortunately, unlike everyone in here, I bought most of mine in 10, 11, and 12 and buy for literally nothing. But I've cashed out over $10 million out of those assets, and I put that money to work elsewhere. We lend that money, we do other things with that money. So as Jeremiah was saying, we look at every client as a picture of, you know, what is their financial goal, Jermaine? But I'm gonna touch on something you said, because no one ever thinks about when we talk about Jermaine, I'm gonna buy for 20, we're gonna put on the market, sell it for 50. Well, first, everyone thinks in their mind their client just made 30 grand. Well, they really didn't. They made 15, because 15 is one of the government. That's ordinary income, 42% in the state of Ohio. You're giving the government, and depending on where they're from California, it's 55%. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're working with your clients, what their method is. In his case, maybe they got another ancillary business that's creating negative loss, or other assets that are carrying a loss that could offset that. It's not like a stock trade, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. It does work down at the bottom, AGI, and your tax return, but nevertheless, those are things you think about. Those are things you should be talking about with the client. You know, the risk of taxes, the risk of all the things that no one's telling you about. So as a lender, we're discussing with your clients on the intake, what's their goal? So they want to buy, you know, we've talked to people that say, I want to buy 20 a year. You own 0. The likelihood of you owning 20 by year end is slim to none. Let's try to own 2. So, you know, as realtors, everybody wants to sell them, and listen, you make money selling paper, but at the end of the day, we got to be realistic with these people and make them understand it's a process. Alexys, you guys really touched on one of the big ones, is property management. Property management is a very difficult thing. If you're remote, you don't know that the toilet's broke. How many times do you know, 10 toilets at the same house? I just helped a client go through this 3 weeks ago, get rid of a property manager. We've got her with a new property manager, trying to get her set up so we can burr out some property. She's currently in hard money lending. And those are all the things that most lenders don't involve themselves with, right? They're here to write paper, and that's it. Once they write the paper, it's your client's problem to deal with all their other problems. Our goal is to make sure those clients are successful. Their success is our success. They're going to come back time and time again every time they produce for that. So we really strive to make sure we understand the client's needs, their demands, their wants. Are they looking for cash flow? Are they looking for appreciation? Are they looking for a quick, turnover? I don't know what I'm meaning, but lady over the Texan that has asked a lot of the questions.
Christine.
You asked a question on first investors. You get these people that I want to be an investor. My philosophy is, if you're a brand new investor, you don't want to be a land. Your first deal should be a flip. They should be successful on their first deal, because if it's a flop, they're done. They're out. They'll never come back to the game again. So you should always look at an easy deal where they can make 10% return on capital. They can get in, buy something for 80 or 100, put 10, 20 in it, make $10,000, $20,000. They made a success. But if you're going to put them in a situation where they buy a house, it's got a crappy tenant in it, it had a crappy contractor, they're not getting the money they're thinking they're going to get, and it just doesn't work out, because paper is one thing, reality is another. Those are where I see a lot of failures. A lot of clients are like so frustrated because they thought they were going to make all this money and this cash flow is going to come in. Their rehab is going to be 3 months, and 7 months later, their rehab's not even halfway done. It's $20,000 over budget. Those are all the things that new investors get into. Those are the horror stories where investors, they do 1 or 2 deals and they're like, this ain't for me.
Especially with the agent who doesn't care about the actual investors and who just care about the check.
You got to care about them. They're your children. At the end of the day, you
Yeah.
treat them like your children. You nurture them. You take care of them. You feed
I've seen a
them.
lot
They
of
will feed you.
investors who's involved with research properties, and agents just sell them and like, okay, I'm walking away, and they like, and they sitting in the mud.
There's
That's
a place for that 30, 40, 50,000 on property, but you better live in Cleveland or close to it. If you live in California, you want to buy 40,000 on property and put 50 in it, likelihood is that's going to fail. You should never put more than 30% of your purchase price in the first 2 or 3 years. You should be looking to buy properties where you're putting less than 30% in, and your renovation budget. Because we talk about ROI, the ROI that no one talks about is how fast is that property cash flowing. If it takes 8 months or a year to rehab it, you've lost a year's worth of income. If you can rehab it in 60 days and a cash flow in 60 days, 90 days, they're burned out, they've got their capital back, they're in long-term debt, it's cash flowing $200, $300, $400 a month per door, they're loving it. They're gonna do it 100 more times. But people fail because they put them in these great deals because it was a great buy. But it's a huge renovation. It's gonna take months and months and months and months. And that's where we see a lot of investors fail. And it's not fail because they're not doing their part. Maybe it's a bad contractor, maybe it's a city issue, structural issue, you name it. It could be, a myriad of 50 things of the reasons why. So that's our philosophy. When we look at a lot of deals, we typically look at 10 to 20 deals a day. If I see a deal that's getting bought for 50, you tell me the rehab budget's 100. If it's not Detroit, Shoreway, or Ohio City, somewhere where you know there's a $300,000 exit, you're wasting your time talking to me. We're probably not gonna fund that project. And I go through the same steps with that client, and let them know why. You're most likely gonna fail. On a $100,000 renovation, I don't care who you are, and I've done my fair share of them. Jermaine, you've done your fair share of them. You're gonna miss $20,000 worth of things you didn't even think about. Your contractor didn't think, your architect didn't think. And so where does that 20% come from? It's gotta come out of your pocket because now the lender's not gonna give it to you. Maybe they don't have the cash, maybe the holding cost has been too high, too long. Those are all things to think about when you're going with new investors, is you want to look at, make sure they're seeing the right opportunity. If you're driving them, as these guys continue to reiterate and driving your clients to the opportunity that fits their model, but also knowing their grief. You're looking for carpet, paint, and put a tenant in there. You're not looking for a project, maybe a kitchen or something. You're not looking for a project that needs a complete gut wall to wall. That's not a first-time investor. That's a seasoned investor, 20, 30 deals with your belt. So those are things I think you guys could do to help your clients grow, is try to look at the right properties and steer them to it.
Can I get your?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Do you guys have cards with you?
Yeah. And from the lending side, we can offer rates as low as 9%, as high as 15%. We can do 90% on fixed money, on hard money, fix and flip. We can do 90% of purchase, 100% of renovation, up to 75% of after repair value. Those require BPO. Then we've got some groups that require no appraisal at all. They do an internal desktop valuation. They lend at 65 or 60%, depending on the experience level. On the DSCR side, we can get rates down in the low sixes, like 6.5, 6.7, on low leverage, 60, 65% leverage. We can take deals up to 80% leverage. It really just depends on the client, what their needs are, what they're looking to do. And if cash flow is there. I was reading your guys' pamphlet. On those pamphlets, we can actually do a negative DSCR down to 0.75 if the investor's credit score is higher than 6 or 760. So it doesn't even have cash flow. If you have a negative cash flow, we can still achieve an 80% loan. So the rule of thumb is 1.25, but typically now with the increased cost of capital and increased cost of property, it's 1% worse.
And how long do you believe this loan for?
So on a fix and flip, on fix and flip as short as 6 months, as much as 24. On the long term, it's a 30-year fixed loan. So it's a fixed term from day one. And on the fix and flip, credit should be, somewhere in the 660s or better. We can do deals where there's no credits required. So foreign nationals, alien nationals with a green card or HB1 card, we can do those, no problem, no questions asked. Canadian citizens, we can do their deals. If they're an American citizen, I only got one shop that will take a deal with no credit check. They won't do any credit check, strategy only.
Do you work with the investors outside the states?
A ton of them.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do 70% cash out for any foreign national, 75% if they have a US presence. So if they have a social security number and they have a credit score, we can do 75%, even though they're not a US resident, but they have to have a social security number.
If they know.
If they're not, we still do 70%.
Okay.
So we work with some Israeli investors that are true foreign nationals, have no ties to the States. It's no problem.
And for your investors, what we try to do is we try to structure it so if it's their first deal, they're going to put some money into it, right? But after deal 2, maybe 3, We want them to be playing with house money. We want all their money back into an account. We want them working with a financial professional, CPAs, financial advisors, whoever they need to be working with to protect their money. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And we want them to keep as much as they can and play with house money and not play with their own. Those first one for sure, maybe number two, they might have a little bit of their own money into it. We want them to be working on borrowed funds after that. So that way the risk for them, you're talking about the ROI, it's infinite at that point in time because they know their own money into the deal. And infinite ROI is where you want to be as an investor.
And for some of you that kind of had the ROI questions, I'll touch on that for a quick second. ROI is really based on the cash injected into the deal. How much real money of yours is left in the deal when the deal's done is what you're basing your ROI on. You're not basing it on borrowed funds. Borrowed funds is somebody else's money. And obviously, if you're working with investors, the first thing they all want to tell you is OPM, other people's money. They don't want to work with their own money. They want to use as little as their own capital. And there's plenty of options to get it done. They just, if they're 2-3 deals in, they can expect to bring somewhere between 10 and 15% of the total deal to the table. And we can structure deals, no experience or the client here, Marla, she's got, 9 or 10 deals under her belt. So we've got her exceptional rates and great deals. So really it's based on their experience level. It's going to affect their rate and the leverage they can get on their first couple. After 3 and 36 months, everyone gets the same playing field. Unless your credit score is under 660. And then that changes it. But short of that, if your credit score is over 660, everyone's on the same playing field.
And then what you provide is just a cash. You don't provide what they provide like a contract and
You do that.
We don't provide anything other than money. So
Yeah. So you have to build that. Like you build those relationships.
yeah, we
down payment from Instaca, I pay how much?
it's deal to deal basis, but somewhere between 10 and 15%. So if it's $100,000 deal, purchase and reno is 100. Expect to bring, worst case 15,000 into the deal. Best case scenario 10,000. And most lenders want you to have skin in the game. If you have no skin in the game, it's easy to walk away and say, "Yeah, this was a flop," and that turns into a blighted property because it takes 3 years to foreclose in Cuyahoga County, and 3 years later, everything's stolen out of there. The property's boarded up. The city's got $10,000 in loan bills on there, and that property's now worth nothing. So lenders aren't in the business of foreclosing; they're in the business of putting good deals together. And we try to strive to make sure every deal we do has a success. I mean, they're not all going to be perfect, and some aren't going to work the way we hope. But the ARVs change, things change. That's something that we talk about ARV in the market. This is a room full of realtors, so I'm going to throw my half a complaint out. When we send ARVs out, or you guys look at a market, don't look at the top of the market and look at a below average or average home and think that this house for 100 is going to be worth 175 if they put carpet paint in it. It's just not. And there's a lot of misleading, and I'm not saying anyone in here is, but there's a lot of realtors that are misleading clients with that. The market's 170 and you can buy it for 90, put 15 in it, it's going to be worth 170. No, it's going to be worth 120, maybe 130.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. You want 170, that 170's got new windows, new roof, new siding, new, all the things you didn't do. No, I mean, it really goes back to knowing your clients and knowing the market and being realistic with yourself and with your clients. And we encounter a lot of agents that aren't realistic, and we have to give their clients the bearer bad news. But the reality of it is if you do a good job with clients and good expectations, if they're in the buy and hold business in Northeast Ohio, they can pretty much do almost every deal and have, burn out with none of their own capital into it. If it was purchased right. And Jermaine types that said, all the money's made on the purchase, not on the refinance or the sell. That's just when you recoup capital.
I'll leave you with this. You guys are talking about building teams and getting the right people in place. As you pay attention to the global market, not just the real estate market, but the global market, I would encourage you guys to spend a lot of time taking financial advisors to coffee. The reason being, the market being so topsy-turvy right now, people are selling their stocks, cashing out, and they want to go into a safe investment. So financial advisors are looking for realtors to connect their clients with, because they want to move money into a safe investment right now while the market is turbulent. So I would encourage you guys to spend some time trying to seek out financial professionals and taking them to get a cup of coffee.
Right next door to this building.
So, one of the biggest things we kind of talked about too is the intake process. And within the intake process, I introduce my clients over to Jeremy and Jeremiah. I do that intro, and then he kind of digs into and with them, they send all their docs over, and then I'll call Jeremy because I don't always like to know. I'll ask how much cash you have on hand or what your reserves look like, but I'll just call Jeremy and say, hey, what's going on with this client? And he'll say, listen, they can get 2 properties. Hey, this one needs to wait. Or, you know, this one's good to go. Like Marla, she already had eight properties in another state, and she already has a nice amount of liquid. So they kind of do the digging on where the resource of their money is coming from.
Investors can change their strategy. She's trying to change her strategy. She was a house had 30%, and now she's looking for a method. So
Yeah.
they can change their strategy.
He brought up something a bit ago. That particular client was actually going to liquidate stock. Didn't know you could borrow from your own brokerage account.
Yeah.
If you got a brokerage account, you can borrow money for 6% while liquidating the position. Now you've got a 40 to 50% tax liability. So you've got to sell almost twice as much as you need to get the money. Or you can borrow against your own position. And again, that's where financial advisors and financial literacy comes in. And as a realtor, if you're working with a lot of investors, if they're not cash, or maybe they're using HELOCs, or they're using stock accounts, etc., these are things that you can advise, maybe not advise them on, but at least mention to them, talk to their advisor. And typically you can borrow against your position up to 70% of your position and have the money in your checking account in seven business days. So before you're ready to close, the money's already in your bank account. So those are great things to think about when you're working with investors, to see what their strategies are, where their liquid coming from, whether it's cash, whether they're 401k. You know, a big one in the 401k, a lot of people, we see it often, is they'll go sell a piece of their 401k. Again, it's a taxable event. If you formed an LLC, you can lend to yourself. I do it all the time. I can lend my own money to my company. And if you don't know this, the government only requires you to charge 0.1%. I can set up a 5-year loan at 0.1%, defer all payments till the 5 years comes to fruition. If I don't return the money, then it's a taxable event. Otherwise, I can take that money for 5 years and pay back, whatever. On $100,000, I might pay back about $1,000 interest over 5 years. And it was my money from the start. So there's a lot of things to think about, good strategies you can talk about with your clients, things that you may not have possible, but there's a lot of strategies that work to access capital that they have, but they may not even know they can use.
So that's what separates us back in money. But getting into what your client has and make sure that they're going in the direction. So set them up for success long term. Because at the end of the day, they're not doing this for their health. They're doing this to make money. So
The more money we will make for them, the more money they make for us.
right.
The model, their success is your success. If they're successful, they'll just keep ringing your phone. When they become unsuccessful, it doesn't take long before your phone stops ringing. And I work with a lot of investors on both sides, good and bad. And I'll tell you, the great ones are great. The ones that lose money, you're the first person they blame. It's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the industry. It's always the realtor's fault, or it's always the contractor's fault. It's never their own fault, because these first-time investors come in and they think they can live at their home in Arizona or California or wherever they're from, and make a phone call to Johnny the contractor, and Johnny's like, "Yeah, this looks great.
I'll take a picture from neighborhood.
Or the house next door.
A little more pushy, I would tell you something to consider. Tell your clients. You can get a geotag service for about $10 a month. When they show up the house, take all their own photos. When their contractor needs a draw, Go there, geolocates where their phone's at, take the photos, send the photos. Compare apples to apples. Did you do the work? Did you get paid? You know, how many horror stories I've heard of contractors sending photos of the wrong house and they get 40, 50,000 and then run off with someone's money? If you can afford to buy a house, you can afford $10 a month. We all can. Cut one cup of Starbucks out, you're good. So it's just good advice to your clients, recommending them to do something like that. It would save them in the long run. You know, the contractor may not be thrilled that they got to go an extra step, but it protects everyone, including themselves from litigation.
Any questions for any of us?
Could you explain a little bit more about house happy?
So that's when you purchase a multifamily, ideally. I mean, some people do rent rooms within their house, but usually it's a multifamily and you're living in part of it and then you're renting.
How do you buy it? How do you
Yeah.
buy yours, Alex?
And then you can,
Lending.
so as far as lending, which is nice, is if you live in a property, when you apply for the loan and you put it as your primary residence, you know, you get more, the rates are more favorable and the down payment is a lot less than when you purchase a property and you have to get financing. They're going to ask is it a owner occupied or not? So if it's a non-owner occupied duplex, I mean, that's, if you're going conventional or even FHA, that's 25% down. But you could buy a multifamily 3.5% down on a FHA or 5% on a conventional, live in it. And the guidelines say you have to live in there for 1 year. So after 1 year, you can move out, rent the entire property out. So you can buy up to a quad. So you could buy a quad, live in one, rent 3, or if you bought a duplex, live in one, rent the other, and then move out, rent both units, and then you could repeat that cycle. I think for yourself. You know, and that's kind of nice because you only have to stay a year and then continue. Yeah, but for the guy, it's a year. It's a 1 year is the minimum that you stay, and then you can move out. But that's like the thing. It's fraud if you say you're going to live in the property and never actually occupy it. You have to occupy within 60 days. So I bought one and I renovated it. So I'm waiting for rates before I refi it, but I lived in it. Now I'm out of it. So I have a short term or I have a midterm rental upstairs. So it's a minimum of a month stay. So they're there for the next 6 months and it's furnished. And then I have a regular tenant downstairs and it's in the Detroit Shore area. So it's like the renter, you know, it's a very high renting area. The tenant is there right now is on the bottom unit was paying $14.50. They're moving out and someone else is moving in for $16.50 in just the one unit.
The other advantage to the house hacking too is after 24 months, if you decide to sell the house, there's no capital gains because it's your primary residence.
Yeah.
So you've avoided another 40% tax bill on any gains.
And especially if you buy one, you put a little bit of money into it too. You could then, theory, give it some time, pull some of that money out, refi it. Take some of that cash. So yeah, that's another a good way. I said it was one of the first things that I did. And then that house kind of funds my next home. Yeah.
That's how I got the house I live in now. I've sold up 4 times to get more money.
Yeah, or I can hear people say they're like, my first house funded my 4th, 5th house, like my dream house. It's kind of laying that groundwork for the next move. It's like that isn't the end game, and it's not maybe the most glamorous always, but yeah, it's a good way to like kind of get into it with like a very minimum cash. Especially as an agent, you can use your commission. Like mine, I had the sellers pay my closing costs, and then I used my commission to go towards my down payment. So I'm like, my cash to close was like $1,200.
Yeah, and you have to let them know that you're an agent. Because I ask for commissions on my investment deals too. Even if it's $2,000, I'm bringing 6 to the table rather than 8.
Yeah, for those little like.
All right, so we're over on time. I want to thank everybody for coming. We are going to have a part 2 and kind of dive in a little bit more on the numbers aspect and everything, a little bit more hands-on. Jeremy and Jeremiah, we thank you so much for coming. Jeremiah, I know you drove about 5 hours again. Yeah. Oh, you flew? Okay. And they provided us lunch, so everyone can make sure to grab something.